If you're interested in stories with happy endings, you would be better off watching some other video. My heart truly aches to continue this story, knowing what I know. You, however, still have a chance. You can still pretend that everything is great with the Umayyad Caliphate, and the golden age under Al-Rahman and Al-Hakam never ended. If, however, you are stubborn enough to continue this story, let me tell you that there were caliphs after Al-Hakam II. But they were extremely unlucky, and most everything that happened to them was rife with misfortune, misery, and despair. I'm sorry to tell you this, but that is how the story goes. The night Al-Hakam died, two of his top officials, Faiq al-Nizami and Jadhar, were there with him. They realized that Hisham was not fit to be the caliph, so they decided to remove him from succession and replace him with Al-Mughira ibn Abdurrahman, Al-Hakam's brother. They kept the caliph's death a secret and reached out to his Hajib, Al-Mushafi. While Faiq simply wanted to kill him, Jadhar suggested talking to him. Al-Mushafi told them that he too believes that Al-Mughira would be a better choice here. However, Al-Mushafi was lying. Al-Mushafi called on the supporters of Hisham, including one man named Muhammad ibn Abi Amr. They reached out to Al-Mughira. Muhammad ibn Abi Amr took 100 slave soldiers and met him. Al-Mughira did not appear to have any political aspirations. However, just to eliminate the threat, Al-Mughira was strangled in front of his own family by the order of Al-Mushafi. Young Caliph Hisham II ascended to the throne of the caliphate. However, he had none of the training and skill that his own father had at his age. Al-Hakam II was old by the time Hisham was born. In addition to that, he had a stroke, so he wasn't able to train his son in the ways his own father, Abdurrahman III, had trained him. So as anyone who plays Crusader Kings 2 knows, an underage ruler only leads to trouble. Immediately, the Christians to the north started raiding Umayyad cities. Muhammad, despite the fact that he had no military experience, volunteered to lead an army against them. Since Al-Hakam had done most of his work for him by fortifying the northern frontier, Muhammad was able to push back the Christians. During his campaigns, Muhammad met Ghalib, Al-Hakam's most trusted general, Amuladi. He formed an alliance with Ghalib, promised him autonomy in the upper march. Muhammad returned to the capital, where he sought to throw out the old Hajib, Al-Mushafi. The army was effectively under Ghalib's control, so Muhammad had an advantage. However, Al-Mushafi sent a marriage proposal between his son and Ghalib's daughter to outmaneuver Muhammad. Ghalib, realizing that he was better off with Muhammad, married his daughter to Muhammad instead. Eventually, Al-Mushafi was arrested in 978 CE and thrown in prison, where he died a few years later. As the young caliph was unable to rule himself, Muhammad ibn Abi Amr rose as the mentor of the young caliph. His family claimed Arab descent and even claimed to have been amongst the first army to invade Al-Andalus in 711 CE. This way, he actually had an older claim to the caliphate than the Umayyads did. However, since Muhammad wasn't born in the right family, he couldn't become the caliph. But Muhammad wasn't about to let the accident of birth stop him. Muhammad formed relations with Umayyad elites, most notably Sub, the mother of young Hisham. He became the manager of her considerable wealth and, according to some, the manager of her other affairs as well, if you know what I mean. Muhammad learned from the Buyids in Iraq. Basically, Buyids had become the puppet masters of the caliph in Baghdad. They kept the caliph in luxurious state but had him as nothing more than a powerless figure. Muhammad decided to do the same. Muhammad assumed the honorable position of the Hajib, the Grand Vizier. He also took a new title. He named himself Count Olaf. Wait, no, that's someone else who eyed the inheritance of orphans. No, he chose the name Al-Mansur, probably another thing he took from the Abbasids. Al-Mansur, effectively the caliph, decided to eliminate the last powerful man in the caliphate. He took an army up north to face Ghalib. Both armies had religious lines blurred. Christian allies and mercenaries were fighting on both sides. Eventually, Ghalib was killed in battle and his army broke. Al-Mansur came out unrivaled in all of Iberia. A particular trait of Al-Mansur was that he used people to kill other people and then kill those people as well. Al-Mansur respected the caliph's religious authority and didn't interfere with him. By this point, Abdurrahman III's city, Madinat al-Zahra, was in disuse. Al-Mansur put the caliph in the palace in Cordoba and moved his administration out of the city into a new palace. He isolated the caliph but kept close tabs on the comings and goings of everyone in the palace. He started to dismember the old Umayyad elites and replacing them entirely with Zaqaliba and Berbers loyal to him, and gold, of course. This, as you might expect, led to an increase in taxes and financial distress on the caliphate. The old Syrian Wali were reduced to tax-paying citizens. Al-Mansur painted himself to be a religious man. Everywhere on his campaign, he carried a Quran with him that he copied himself. He also carried a white cloth that his body would be buried in if he dies on the campaign. He collected soil from all his campaigns to be mixed with perfumes when his body was washed during his last rites. He made the final extensions to the Mosque of Cordoba for the Berbers. They still stand today. He cracked down hard on other schools of thought, publicly executing a scholar for having Mu'tazila beliefs. This religious reputation solidified his power further. Like all good politicians, he knew how to use religion to distract people from domestic issues like those increased taxes. Even though he wasn't a seasoned general, he still won many campaigns. He sacked Barcelona in 985 CE and Santiago de Compostela in 997 CE. However, in the long term, this had little effect. The Christians proved resilient. He had the prisoners from Santiago carry the church bells to Cordoba for propaganda purposes. Muhammad ibn Abi Amr al-Mansur died in 1002 CE. His reign might have been the zenith of the Caliphate of Cordoba. However, it was the beginning of the end for the Umayyad dynasty in Al-Andalus. Al-Mansur managed to maintain the stability of Al-Hakam II's reign. He did so ruthlessly but effectively. For example, he killed his own son for conspiring to take power from him. He killed anyone who helped him gain power to eliminate potential rivals. His reputation is divisive. While some historians appreciate his victories against the Christians, others note that those victories came from the campaigns that were only starting to distract the people. Nevertheless, he was an incredible politician who managed to bring together unlikely allies for the need of the moment. Later, he would usually kill those allies, but let's ignore that. Al-Mansur was succeeded by his son Al-Muzaffar. He managed to hold on to quite a bit of power because he was a good general and led some successful campaigns. However, he wasn't interested in administration and was usually found in a garden somewhere drunk. He was very unpopular because of the high taxes and his uselessness. During his time, the Saqaliba were starting to rise again. Al-Mansur had effectively purged all the heads of Saqaliba. There were no leaders during his reign, but now a new generation was rising up. Saqaliba rose to powerful positions throughout the administration and eventually formed a powerful bloc to resist the Berbers. The Saqaliba even tried to overthrow the entire administration. They wanted to install another one of Abdurrahman's grandsons to the throne. However, the plot was discovered and the plotters and the claimant to the throne were executed. Al-Muzaffar realized that his power was in danger and tried to get his crap together. Unfortunately, he died before he could do that. In the year 1008 CE, after Al-Muzaffar's death, his half-brother Abdurrahman ibn al-Mansur became the Hajib. He was also known as Sanchuelo, Little Sancho, because his maternal grandfather was Sancho II of Pamplona. He made some serious mistakes, like absolutely terrible decisions. First of all, Little Sancho decided to force Hisham to appoint him as the heir to the caliphate. He didn't come from Quraysh, which was Prophet Muhammad's tribe, so Muslims weren't a fan of the idea of his caliphate. His father, Al-Mansur, had made sure that the caliph was at least a figurehead, but Little Sancho just wanted to do away with it. He had it declared in a Friday prayer that Hisham couldn't find any suitable heirs in the Quraysh. No one liked that. Secondly, Little Sancho openly displayed his reliance on the Berbers. He made turbans, a typical Berber headgear in Al-Andalus, the formal headgear of the court. This alienated the remaining factions like the Saqaliba and the Muwallad. Little Sancho sensed his unpopularity and decided to do what every good politician does when in trouble. He started a war. He invaded Christian lands in the north to prove his manliness and justify his claims to the title. However, what he didn't take into account was that this was the middle of the goddamn winter and he was headed to the mountains. How stupid can one guy be? As soon as news reached Cordoba that he had entered Christian land, his enemies struck. Muhammad ibn Hisham ibn Abdul Jabbar ibn Abdurrahman III, the great-grandson of Abdurrahman III, whose father had previously been executed for aspiring to the throne, led some men into the palace and forced Hisham to abdicate in his favor. He declared himself caliph. He took on the regnal title of al-Mahdi in an attempt to appear a messiah who would return the Umayyad rule to its glory. This was in February 1009 CE. Al-Mahdi quickly installed his cousins to positions of power in an attempt to consolidate his rule. On the other side, Little Sancho's army melted in the winter and was obliterated. He was arrested and executed when he tried to enter Cordoba with just one companion. The Saqaliba quickly aligned themselves with Al-Mahdi. Their leader Wadi decided this was preferable to the rule of the puppet masters. Hence, they provided the force Al-Mahdi needed. Al-Mahdi felt threatened by the Berbers. The Cordobans weren't fan of the Berbers in their city that Al-Mansur had brought, and they forced Al-Mahdi to humiliate them. They were forbidden from carrying arms and were eventually expelled. They moved north to Calatrava. There they raised a man named Suleiman, a member of the Umayyad dynasty, to be their candidate for the throne. They allied with the king of Castile, Sancho Garcia, and attacked the capital. Al-Mahdi fell to Toledo with the Saqaliba. In November of 1009 CE, Suleiman entered Cordoba and was crowned caliph. He chose the regnal title of Al-Musta'in. He threw a feast in honor of Sancho Garcia for installing him to the throne, and no one liked that. Al-Mahdi and the Saqaliba, now aligned with the Christian Count of Barcelona, marched on Cordoba. Suleiman realized that he wasn't popular in the city, so he retreated north to face Al-Mahdi with his Berber army. The Berbers were defeated and Al-Mahdi was once again crowned caliph. However, Al-Mahdi wasn't all that popular, and the Saqaliba realized that they didn't need a real caliph. They just needed a caliph. So they executed him in June 1010 CE. Hisham II was installed as caliph once again. The defeated Berbers bounced back and laid siege to Cordoba, which went on for 3 years. Wadih, the head of the Saqaliba, was executed. Cordovans, tired of the siege, surrendered. The city was sacked. The jewel of Spain was robbed and burned by the Berbers. Hisham fled the city, abandoning it to its fate. Let's see what our good friend Hugh Kennedy has to say. Another important consequence of the confusion in Cordoba was the immediate shift in the balance of power between Muslims and Christians in the peninsula. This probably did no more than bring into the open a shift which had been occurring since the debacle of Al-Nasir's defeat at Al-Handega in 939. Al-Mansur's determination meant that the Christians were on the defensive in the Emirate period, but resistance was stiff, and when political troubles erupted in the capital, the Christians were able to take advantage immediately and effectively. A Christian count, possibly Garcia Ramirez of Figueira, was Sanchuela's main supporter in his attempt to regain his position after Al-Mahdi's coup in 1009. Both Muhammad al-Mahdi and Suleiman al-Musta'in had sought the support of Sancho Garcia of Castile, and Suleiman, who secured it, had to hand over strategic castles in payment. Al-Mahdi and Wadih were prepared to pay extortionately for Khalitan help against the Berbers. Christian military superiority over the Andalusians, which became so painfully apparent as the 11th century wore on, was already becoming obvious. The Caliphate of Cordoba was claimed by one man or the other for the next 5 years, but no one was able to sustain it. The title passed on to various people like Abdurrahman IV, Muhammad III, Hisham III, and Abdurrahman V. It was even claimed by a Berber dynasty called Hamudid for a while. This period was one of confusion and instability, often called the Fitna of Al-Andalus. Finally, in 1031 CE, the Caliphate of Cordoba was officially abolished after 275 years, because the Cordovans were so tired of the past few decades of mess that they decided to do away with the Caliphate altogether. The last caliph, Hisham III, was exiled to Catalonia, where he died some years later. The territory was divided up into various taifa, Arabic for group or faction. To think it all basically started with Al-Hakam having his first child at the age of 46. The home that embraced Abdurrahman I, that was tamed by the Umayyads and shaped into a proper realm, was now broken up into various kingdoms. And it seemed to the Muslims of Al-Andalus that they were moving in an aberrant direction. The word aberrant here means very, very wrong and causing much grief. See you next time. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon to be notified when I upload a video. Special thanks to my generous patrons on Patreon who make these videos possible. Their names you can see on the screen right now. If you want to support the channel, head over to Patreon and pledge $1 or more. You also get some really cool perks, according to me.